Girl! Slay the house down boots, mama.
Now that was a bad choice.
Right. No. Don't try to change the subject. Spill the tea.
Okay, but what was she expecting?
Well, that bitch is crazy.
Honestly, Papa, we should have talked first.
Can you blame her?
She should probably drink a little less. Literally. Well, let's get into it then. It's time to spill the tea with Damen B.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Spill the Tea with Damen B. And we have Gigi back with us.
Hi everyone.
Look at her beautiful hair and makeup.
Okay, I got my hair cut, but this part is not. I did not get bangs. I'm too afraid, and I think this is nice to do every once in a while, but then leave it. So if we do two things tonight, I'll take this off and you'll see without. Yeah. So.
You'll see the illusion disappear.
Right, and then you'll just see the regular haircut, which looks fabulous, by the way. I'm really happy with that. Well, see, because I go to hairdressers and I say to them, can you cut my hair? And when you have girls have long hair, oftentimes nobody wants to cut it. It's a weird little thing that I don't understand. But so I'll go in and I'll say, I want a haircut, and I'll walk out with a hair trim. You see what I mean? So this time I went in and I said, listen, I want it cut, and I'm showing you where I want it cut. So that was about this much hair came off. And this girl was brave, and she just dug right in, and off it went.
Very nice.
Thank you.
So some people say 5 inches isn't a lot, but when you get it cut off your hair.
Exactly. It's a huge.
Whoa.
5 inches is quite enough. Oh my goodness.
So we're going to be talking about controversial topics today.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay.
I know. And we got this big list, and it started off with abortion because it's alphabetical.
Oh, that's a big topic.
So where do you stand on abortion?
Well, I stand on the side of right. Which is this: we as women have to have the right to our bodies and to birth control and to control pregnancies, etc. Because, and I'm going to tell you why, and it may be a little different than what you think. The reason we need that is because most of the time we are left with the responsibility afterwards. The man seems to disappear, and that's not every time, but often there's enough of that, and you have to be able to make that decision and make that determination. We, like they say, well, we're the only creatures that do that, and we shouldn't do that. Well, we actually have brains that work and are higher. That's why we were given those brains to reason things out, and we were given those brains to decide, can I bring a child into this world, raise it without help? Because quite often that help, or in my experience, help disappears, and you're on your own. And it's a big decision for a woman, and men, I just don't think should be involved at all. I just don't. Well, so how do you feel about that? Because that sort of throws in the face of, maybe you feel a little differently, that men maybe should have a little bit of a thought.
Actually, I believe the older generations are to blame, because if they just would have kept the women in line, they wouldn't have the right to vote. They would.
we wouldn't be having baby after baby.
We wouldn't be having this conversation right now because.
Oh my goodness. Okay, and Damon is just kidding, everyone. Just so you know, he likes to bug grandma.
Yeah.
With his little rhetoric about women and their issues.
Women were meant to do one thing, and that was to reproduce.
Procreate. And why would they ever have any choice
any
in
say.
that matter? So I what I do know is, and it flummoxes me. There's a good word. Um,
Word of the
right
day.
now, I literally know, and this is crazy to me, two companies um, who are of the conservative view, and they can opt out of um, birth control for women. They can, so their coverage, your health coverage,
Yeah.
they can opt out and not allow their employees to get birth control, and they do. I think that's
Well,
insane. I think
Graham,
that's absolutely insane.
now, Grandma, I gotta correct you on something here. They did opt out of birth control by like the pill form and stuff, but they do provide wire hangers. So
Exactly. You could get one in the coat closet on your way out.
exactly. So don't tell me that there's no birth control options there for
Six. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Wow.
so
Okay. Well, you got me there. I don't know what to say to that.
so to the conservatives who say I never stick up for you, I got your back on this. I'm
Well,
I'm team wire hanger.
and the problem is when you don't have abortion and those sorts of things available, women will resort to, because it
Yeah,
becomes a
that's sad.
desperation.
Yeah.
And they're right now in the financial climate that we are in, I think it becomes more important than ever that we supply available birth control, available abortion if necessary. And no, I don't like I may okay, I'm going to start that again. I don't think like 99.9% of women, if having to make that decision, and I will say I have made that decision, you don't take it lightly. It is not a light decision that you all of a sudden go wake up one day and go, "Oh, I think I'm going to, get rid of this baby." It is a very, very difficult choice and a difficult decision. I do know one woman who used it as birth control, literally. And I
Oh,
don't agree with that. I have to say I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that either. So I'll tell you my stance on it. I'm all for it because, like you said before, the man isn't always in the picture. Sometimes it's
No.
a woman left alone. Um, and I think this just puts like the cherry on top of the cake for me. It really bothers me when people try to dictate what other people should do with their bodies and stuff. So what drives me
Yes.
nuts is when cuz I used to work in a hospital, seeing people outside that hospital with signs um about having abortions and stuff and trying to make people feel bad about it when you know what, it's already a hard enough decision and they don't
Exactly
need
what I was saying.
you. Yeah.
Terrible, terrible, difficult decision in the first place.
Yes.
Um, I don't think you need someone spitting on you and making you feel any worse than you already do. And when a woman comes to that conclusion, and I'm saying 99.9%, um, when they come to that decision, it is not a gleeful one, it is not a happy one. They don't forget it. And I don't believe most women, 99.9%, will continue on to do it again. So this whole idea of, well, they're just using it for birth control. I have seen that one time, but I
Mhm.
know a lot of women, and I know a lot of women who have had that procedure done. And the big major part part of those women are not didn't have it twice, didn't take it lightly, and it was a difficult choice. This one woman, well, you know what? I blame that on the doctors. I say somebody needed to say, "Hey, you can't
Listen,
do
it's
that."
not come here 6 times, get the
Right,
7th one for free kind
right.
of
And
thing.
in the hospital, the one place that I did work with, they did perform that. They don't anymore, but they did. And that surgeon, he did have a limit, and it is in Canada up to the doctor and up to because there's no real law on it, but they do police it in the doctor's sense. Um, so that doctor, he had a 2 procedure limit,
Mm,
and then they had to go somewhere else if that was the case. But of all the things that I ever saw, I it wasn't like you saw a repeat person coming back and trying to get them and whatever. It was
yeah.
always, almost always, well, always an accident and a very young, scared girl who was going to be left on her own to raise that child. And
See, that's the thing because I feel like it's always the young women, especially in high school, who get pregnant because boys don't want to use condoms or, they don't have access to it, even though they are available for free at your local health clinic.
mhm,
Um, because I did take a handful once. And then also, people should just turn gay because then we would have
well,
less children and
that
less
would
abortions.
that would
Honestly,
work
there it
for
is.
me.
Pick a struggle. Like either stop the gay people or,
Yeah, yeah,
stop
exactly. One
abortion.
or the
You,
other.
you
Leave
gotta
leave
pick
one.
one
Yeah.
because
So
it's
what I'm finding
contradicting.
now also is we are coming into where so these same conservative say in those 2 companies that I'm talking about are located in New Brunswick. So a girl literally cannot even get birth control. Well, she can, but she has to pay for it. So a young woman working in their company,
Hmm.
all the only medication they would probably require is birth control, and they can't get it. They have to pay that out of their pocket. And it's usually not enough to put on your taxes and regain. So you have to literally pay for that yourself, which is ridiculous, insane. But then that same company has some big influence over the province, and they've now closed their only clinic that that provided abortions. So now you have young girls working who can't, the birth control is not provided, and also they have no option for abortion. And just to let everybody know, the statistics are an unwanted child raised in a shitty home because it's unwanted usually becomes a liberal. So just so people know that their political affiliation does not turn conservative. So it's an odd thing that people are wanting.
I mean, are you saying I'm a statistic? Because I grew up with a
You
single mother and I'm very liberal.
Well, I think you are wanted. There's a difference. But there
I'm
are situations and I see them I was just thinking about it the other day. Oh, I was listening to something and it was about a child who was murdered at the age of 5, lived an absolutely horrid life until then. And I mean, wouldn't he have preferred to have been aborted? Don't tell me that kid wanted to live in that. The kid did not. So there is a reason to do it too, and provide it free.
I also believe like I think the sooner you can get an abortion, the better too. Like, was
Well, in Canada, like right now, we have a 16-week rule, I believe.
Mhm.
So it's not a law, but it is a rule, and you'd be hard pressed to find a doctor who would go beyond that, unless it was
Yeah.
something that was going to affect the mother. And that's the other thing. When you start stopping and terminating or stopping abortion from taking place, you also are putting women at risk, because then if you have a pregnancy that is going to cause the mother harm, she cannot terminate that pregnancy under those laws. So you're actually putting a human being at risk because of your stupid views.
S-
So,
Okay, I have story time right now.
mhm,
Second year university, we had a presentations and persuasions class. Now, we were supposed to do speeches about something happening in our lives. I did mine on how to keep your teeth white. This girl
oh,
decided
nice.
to do hers on her mother's decision not to get an abortion,
Hmm.
which was very triggering. I wish the professor would have stopped it because we were all like, "What the fuck just happened?" So basically, the story was her mom was having complications with the pregnancy, and this was going to be her
Hmm.
second child. Her being the daughter told the mother, this is essentially what happened, that she wants a baby sister. And
Oh.
if she had an abortion, she would almost kill herself. She would probably kill herself, or she would just be so like upset or
Oh,
whatever.
okay.
And
Whatever.
the mom had, I forget the percentage she had, but she had like a really high chance of dying if she went through with the baby. Well, she was guilt tripped into having this child, and was like horrific or whatever. Her mom was like in hospital for weeks after the child's birth or whatever. Luckily, they both survived, and she was like, "Oh, and now I have a baby sister." And we're like, "You like? Did you really like try to guilt trip your own mother
Yeah.
into like?"
Yeah.
It was
Obviously,
crazy.
that girl has no idea about childbirth and whatever, and I just whatever. I think some people are insane, and then there's others who, you know what, either their political views or their religious views, they push these narratives on people, and but they're not in their shoes. And I I know that there are situations, where somebody is terribly, terribly desperate. And yes, you can say, okay, well, carry that child and give it up for adoption. I love that one. I love that,
Ugh.
because you know what? That's a total man thing to say, because they have no clue. Number one, what your body goes through when you are pregnant and carry a child. Now you're asking, say, a 14-year-old to carry a child for 9 months and then turn around and give it up for adoption. I know I happen to also have experience. My mother gave her daughter up for adoption, and my half sister, and the trials and tribulations that both of them went through. I'm not saying that she would have, you know, maybe like she would have preferred that my mother had an abortion. Of course not. Of course, when a person is alive, they're
Mhm.
not going to say that. Well, maybe. I don't know. I have heard that though. I have heard adopted children say, I wish she would have, or my mother would have just aborted me because of their terrible experience. Now, I've also heard adopted children having wonderful experiences,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of trauma and drama and everything that goes along with that for the mother and the child. And I don't believe a little blob of cells is alive and would know whether it would come to fruition or not. Do you know what I mean? So when that
Yeah.
that blob of cells in the uterus doesn't make it to a child, I don't think it knows anything about it.
Well, you gotta think back too. It's like when you think of your childhood memories, you don't remember being 1 years old. Like you don't remember
Right,
things.
a
I don't
baby.
I
Right.
don't remember like coming out of the womb. I
No.
don't remember my
No.
circumcision. Like, it's
Right.
crazy.
Right.
So why would how would that baby know? And plus
Right.
it's well, it's gone. Well, like that's it's but
And it's not a pleasant thing, but
yeah.
again, as thinking, breathing, reasoning human beings who are not dogs and cats, we're actually more progressed being than they are, and we have the ability to do this without a lot of pain to the mother, or and the cells are just cells, or small whatever.
Mhm.
It's not affecting either. But when you say, well, just carry it and then give it away, I don't know who does. Like, it's not a puppy.
Right?
We're
It's
not
like where
like
do you think
women.
it's
Yeah.
going? Where do you think
Yeah,
the child's
yeah, and
going?
women are not dogs and or cattle.
No.
And okay, I know your views, your fucked up views.
I don't know about that.
But
Well,
I'm just saying, so to say to someone, "Well, you can just give it up." Well, she's
yeah.
not a mother like a bitch dog, and even bitch dog, do they really wanna give up their I don't know that. I don't know, but I'm not into that right now. I'm just saying that is such a traumatic experience, I'm sure, on all ends. And maybe sometimes the adoptive parents and child, it's all a wonderful thing. I've heard a lot of very scary stories that have happened where the adopted child was adopted because one parent wanted a child, not both. And
Mm.
so the child was hated by the other parent. I've heard of where they brought the children in um, because the father wanted someone to abuse. And that was the,
Jesus.
you know what I mean? So, yeah, like there's a lot of scary
Some
stories out
yeah.
there.
Some people just want to check for drugs and alcohol. So
So I'm just saying,
yeah.
it is what it is, and I am on the side of abortion. It should be regulated. Regulated, absolutely. I don't think you should be using it as birth control. I don't think your brain, like I don't think as a woman that is like even a good idea. Because you have to go through a lot of decision making and everything every time. And you have to, in Canada, I happen to know, you have to see counselors before that happens. You have to discuss it. You have to make sure that's what you want. And but when you get there, people should not be spitting on you and men especially do not stand outside with a sign. Like I don't
Damn
know how
it.
you haven't been. I don't know
There,
how you haven't
there
been
goes my
shot yet.
there
I
goes my
know.
weekend plans. I just spent
Yeah.
all this money on markers and glitter.
Stand outside with my sign.
My sign.
No more abortion because I don't know what anything any of this means or, like go away. Stop it.
I also
Stop.
think the human
Like just
well,
leave us women with our uterus and we'll leave you men with your penises to look after those, okay? We'll look after our stuff. We don't
well,
need you involved.
I think we should have a conversation about men getting vasectomies and a male form of birth control because now they have these pills where it's like sperm blockers or whatever. So I'm
Mhm.
like, should men have to take these pills now? Like,
Right, because that's what I was saying at the beginning. Like women take a lot of responsibility
yeah.
for everything. And then when that child is born, again, the woman I and even in families like mom and dad, the mother is always like you don't often see the dad as Mr. Responsible. Yeah, occasionally, and everybody makes a big fuss about it. My God, look at Mr. Man over there just doing what he's supposed to be doing. Um, I'm just saying mostly women are responsible for birth control. How come? It shouldn't be. And like there's young men can go and have a very quick procedure, go and have a vasectomy and have it put back when they want to have kids and then have it redone. Like Michael Scott, snip snap, snip snap.
Snip snap, snip snap. Make up your mind.
So, I mean, that's an option, and when you put that to, um, mothers and I have said it, to mothers of young men in high school, you should see their faces. It's like,
Yeah.
"What?" And it's, well, you're making your daughter like, these young girls are going on hormone changing medication. Some of them get blood clots. I bet you if you looked at the post-op complications of a vasectomy as compared to the complications taking birth control, is very very similar,
Uh,
probably.
I also want to say, like, men, from my experience, don't like wearing condoms whatsoever. I've heard lots
Right.
of stories about them complaining about having to wear a condom and they just want to take it off. Whereas women either have to take birth control, they're on an IUD, or like that thing that's you stick up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they get their tubes tied. Like, it's always the woman has to do something to prevent it. Or
Right, and when she
yeah.
gets pregnant, it's always like, "Well, why wasn't she on birth control? What?
Yeah.
Why isn't she taking birth?"
What?
Well, hey, you know what? Why isn't he? Why isn't he doing something to stop this from happening? And you know what? And then in the end, there's just simple accidents. When you have two kids and they're 14 or 12, 13, 14, whatever, they start doing stuff like that, and their parents have their head in the sand, acting like that's not going to happen until they're over 18, right? And they're there over there doing it. They're not worried about condoms or nothing else. They don't even know what's going on. And then all of a sudden she comes home and she's the one responsible and her parents are the ones that are responsible. And if you look in the southern states right now, you've got this is just gone rampant. is
Well,
young girls pregnant and having babies having babies, and that's another thing too. Just a young girl having a baby is even dangerous. And you see these babies being put in dumpsters, you hear of child abuse, then they have multiple fathers. It's a whole gamut of problems after that. And an abortion takes care of most of those problems.
again,
Simple.
they shouldn't be going out and getting abortions every year, like clockwork.
No,
But
and that's called,
yeah,
what like, oversight, right? We have to have oversight, and we do. In Canada, we do. The United States, I don't, because their doctors get paid privately and things like that. Here in Canada, we have government funding, so then there is a government oversight and all of that. So it's quite a bit different, but it is still available at this moment. However, not in all provinces, just so people know. So you have young girls in some provinces that have no access to that.
yeah, like New Brunswick.
Although I'm driving to wherever.
Oh,
I
well,
don't
yeah.
care.
Well,
Yeah.
then you would have to pay too, right? Because if you don't live in that certain province, though, like, okay,
No, no, there is a cover. Well, like I know where I worked before, they were coming from because they don't have it in Quebec, and they were coming across the border to Ontario, and
mm,
it was still covered. Like they just reciprocal bill. But
oh,
no,
okay.
you know what? I think they did have to pay because
Yeah.
Quebec wouldn't even cover it. Like they wouldn't even cover it. New Brunswick, on the other hand, they'd probably reciprocal bill them because they just don't have the service.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
Quebec where you had to pay cash. Uh, those
Damn.
young girls. Yeah, and that's getting into some nasty stuff, and I just don't agree with it. I think we're a progressive society, and you have to just stick with the times. I think women can make those determinations without men sticking their noses or dicks or anything else in it.
Okay, now it's kind of crazy because you know how I kid about like, oh, women shouldn't have rights, blah blah blah. Well,
Mm.
some people actually think that, and it's kind of crazy that people think,
I know.
which
Is
is
that weird?
it's just weird, and so it's just like
I
it's just it's like I don't know. To me, it's like common sense. Like they're their own person. They I don't I don't know. It's just so hard, and I just want to say like is it affecting you? Like, for that person outside of that abortion clinic telling people not to get an abortion, how is this affecting you personally? Like,
Right. And don't forget, like these people who are saying you can't have abortion, just adopt these children out. Well, they're not adopting these children.
yeah.
Let's not forget that. And then we have a foster care system that is overwhelmed, full of these children who the young mother takes home because she can't part with the child because that's just normal, natural, and then realizes when the child's 3 or the child's finally taken away because of the horrible conditions and goes into the foster system. Well, nobody's adopting those 5-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. There's a lot of issues in some places, like in the United States, where there's color involved. So those people are saying, just adopt them out, but they're not adopting those different colors. Like they just want one color. So it's just making such a horrible, and there's so many times, like I listen to these crime podcasts and things, and there's so many times when I just think if they should have just had an abortion. I mean, that poor kid. And that's awful to say, but when circumstances are that bad, you know ugh, just awful.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's my views.
and plus, like you said, the foster system. There's so many kids in like foster care too. So it's just like the more
Yeah.
kids in there, the less chance they're gonna get of having a happy family and adoptive parents.
Yeah, and
So,
we like when I was growing up, my mother and my grandmother took in foster children, and so I have a bit of experience with that. And what you get are very, very like these kids have issues. and they have issues because they're coming from a terrible place. You have to be pretty terrible to lose your kids, or the
Mhm.
situation has to be. And so these kids have experienced terrible things, um, that quite possibly, had they have just not been born, I mean, they wouldn't have grown up to be a serial killer, or maybe not grown up to be a murderer, or someone who goes to jail and never comes back out. I'm telling you, our jails are full, and you watch now that they've overturned Roe versus Wade in the United States. In 20 years, the crime rate will be in, increased substantially. The babies being born now that weren't that they couldn't get access to abortion, the crime rate in 20 years will be increased. And they found that when Roe versus Wade went through and women had access to abortion in the United States, the crime rate went down 20 years later. And they couldn't figure out why. And then they realized because they had access to abortion.
Damn. Look at
Simple
that.
statistics, folks. And I don't know, because these people who don't want abortion, who are against it, also don't want criminals, and they don't want crime, and they don't want all that seedy stuff going on. So which is it? Like, again, like, don't be hypocritical. Pick your lane,
Right?
and then let everybody else just exist.
Also, I feel really bad too for the kids whose parents were like, it's a single mom, and let's say her son or daughter. Let's go daughter. And they meet a man or something, and the man's abusive. I'm not talking about my childhood. I just don't know that but like, they get someone else, and they choose their spouse over their child, and that's just
Right.
like so sad.
And it
Like,
happens all the time.
yeah,
And then they have children together, and that child lives a horrible
yeah,
existence,
uh,
where they're sort of out in the cold and out in the dark, and the stepfather or mother can't stand them.
yeah.
Um, I have had experience with stepchildren, um, previous relationships, and it is not easy. It's not an easy thing when you're dealing with another parent who was the spouse of your spouse. All that stuff comes with it. Um, and then children that aren't your children. It's really not an easy thing. And if you're not capable mentally, or maybe grown up enough mentally, um, then that can really turn into a really, really bad situation really quickly. And it is bad for mothers. So mothers, I think women should have the last say, the end say, and be able to make that decision. Can I do this? And if I do this, can I do it on my own? If I can't, like, I said, I had the experience, because and I had to make that determination because I was on my own. I
Mhm.
already had 2 children. I had like a minimum wage job, a house. I was already sinking, and was I going to add another child? And literally, financially, I could not afford it. I couldn't do it. So, that's how that goes.
Yeah, well, it's totally different too, right? It's like for some people, they have a great support system, right? Like they
Right.
have family who will help
Mhm.
them
Mhm.
financially. They're gonna have wonderful grandparents who's gonna love this child, and they're like, we'll help you take care of it. You can come live with us, And then where on the
Mhm.
other hand, you have single mothers who maybe doesn't
Are
have
isolated.
isolated, yeah,
Exactly.
who's
Right.
working already, they have multiple children already, they can't do it,
Right,
it's
and
like
my circumstance, I mean, my first husband died. I had no choice in that. I already had a child. My second relationship failed. Okay, I had a choice in that. But now I'm going to add in a third child with another last name. You know what I mean? Like, and then and I'm telling you, people look at that and they go, "Oh, aren't you a whore?"
well, I'm
Whether no
just
matter what the back circumstances are. You're
If
just
the shoe
saying, I know.
fits Cinderella. At this point, the government should be getting involved and be like, "Okay, you need to sign a
Yeah.
form and fill it
Yeah,
out
that
and submit
you're
it."
no longer, yeah,
Yeah,
going to have sex.
yeah. If you wanna have
Mm,
sex, you have to submit a form, and then we'll fill
right.
like, we'll give you a
Yeah.
condom, we'll give you birth control, we'll give you a wire
And we'll put on a
hanger.
chastity, yeah, we'll get a chastity, you'll wear a
Yeah,
chastity belt otherwise.
yeah,
That's your choices.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So, I mean, yeah, and it was a complete accident.
yeah.
Thought we were covered, and, apparently not. So, it is what it is. And to make that decision, I'm telling you, it was one of the most difficult decisions I've ever made, and I don't look back on it fondly, and I don't think about it and go, "Oh, phew." I think about it and I think, you know, what if, what could have been, what maybe I could have, maybe I should
Mhm.
have, always second guessing. But no, I don't look at it, and I would never like, after that experience, there was no chance in hell that that was happening again.
Well,
So
some people do, like, they grieve. Oh, well, I'm sure there
mhm.
everyone
Yeah.
grieves over the process because
Yes. Yeah,
it's
it
yeah,
is.
they're
It's a grief,
yeah.
and it's sad. But you have to also, like, I had to look at my circumstance and say, "What am I doing? I can't even afford diapers for the one I have, and
Mhm,
I'm working. It's not like I'm on welfare and I'm like whatever. I am working hard, and I can't afford to, we were eating not very good food. I got her into like I toilet trained her before she should have been type thing because I couldn't do diapers anymore. I just couldn't afford it. So that's what I'm saying. So I'm going to add another and go off on maternity leave where a woman only gets paid 50% of what she's making. How would I have ever existed off that?
I don't know, grandma, and that's why women should have to stay with the man. Just kidding.
Well, that's what they used to make them do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Again,
and then you just couldn't leave, like, no matter what was happening. Whatever.
if we never change that, it's
Yeah, everything would be just just
just
fine for
fine.
the men. I think it's still pretty fine for the men.
Right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
damn. Is there anything else we should add before we wrap up?
Well, I just think that hopefully, if anybody is experiencing that or runs into that problem, that they can find the appropriate help. And I wish there
Mhm.
was a way that we could. I just don't know where they turn these days, but search it out for sure. You'll find something. Um,
Oh, you can put into Google resources
yeah,
and stuff to
yeah,
find clinics
and I'm
and
sure you will. Yeah.
yes. And stick to your guns. Don't let anyone else pressure you into or
Oh,
not into, you know, going to the clinic. So,
yeah,
um,
and I have to say for young people, the other thing, like that girl who's pregnant and everybody's saying like, you can't have an abortion, keep it. She's 14, 15, 16, whatever. Her whole life is now over. The guy, he finishes high school. He goes on to college. He goes and becomes whatever he wants to be. And that girl's life is over at that point. Because when you have a child, which maybe men don't know this, I don't know, but when you have a child, their life becomes more important than the mother's. And so their mother's life practically ends. And
and
is that fair?
that's why I don't understand why people have kids so young. It's just like I want to live my life. Like I
Well, and
don't
I think
really.
people are
Ugh.
catching on to that now. When I was that age, yeah, people had it. And even before, like in your grandpa's era, it was like 17, 18 years old. They were getting
Yeah.
married and having babies. And then it got to like 23, 24, 25. And now it's moving into 30s. And I think it's way
Yeah.
better now. Way
Look,
better.
like when I want to adopt a child if I do want to have children. I don't want to get a surrogate because again, I think we're overpopulated and I'm not going to support that. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go adopt a child. But that's not until I'm like 34. I think 34 would be 33 at least, maybe.
Now, the sad part, and I was just discussing this with one of my daughters. Um, what the sad part about it is a woman's body is the most absolute ready to have a child between the ages of like 15 and 18. They are the most ready and prime and can handle it, like, spit it out and come back and everything looks great and good, and usually healthy baby and all the rest of it. So when you get to 30, they actually call that like an elderly pregnancy, or an I forget what it's called, but it's like really terrible. But that's when, like, you start getting into, Down syndrome, and um
Oh
like,
wow.
and if you don't have abortion, you start getting in, like, after 30, you start getting into these problems with, and you can actually test for them and make a determination at that point. Do you want to continue with this pregnancy? We have that right now. If they take it away, then you continue with a pregnancy of a mentally challenged baby, could be severely mentally challenged. And I'm not saying Down syndrome is, but they're, just problems, and
Mhm.
you're saddled with that because of you can't get an abortion. So is that okay? Is that fair? Is that fair to the child? Is that fair to the parents? I don't think it is.
And I know it's like no one wants to say like because they're mentally challenged, now I want to get an abortion. You know what I mean? No one like wants to say that, but your life
No.
will be a lot
Right, and you're
harder.
30, so if
Yeah.
you're in your 30s, you have to look at this realistically. That child, like, so so if you're in your 30s and you have a severely mentally challenged child, when you're 60, that child is 30. What is going to happen to that child? So even after 50, just know you're waiting for whatever shoe is going to drop on what disease you're going to have or how you're going to die. So after 50, every day is a miracle.
Yeah.
And so, but for that child, who's looking after that child when you die? So then you're burdening your, like, their sister, brother, and I know people, sisters and brothers, went, no freaking way, ain't coming with me. I'm not doing it. So where does that child go? And is that fair? Is it fair to bring that child in and then you pass away from something at 50, in your 50s, and leave that child who then gets put in some kind of home, or, you know, group home, that, and they don't
Yeah.
even know what's going on? And I mean, it'd just be horrible for the kid. Horrible. I don't know. Is that fair? Yeah, like a group home. And yeah, and but what I'm saying is that that child, grows up for 30 years in your home, and then you die, and that child, suddenly that world changes, and maybe that child doesn't really know or can't express or talk, or and all of a sudden that whole world, and they can't understand what happened. They may not understand death. They just, so it's, yeah. Yeah, it's getting really sad, but I'm saying there's a reason for abortion, and it's a medical reason, and it's needed. It's necessary. Don't let it go away, and men, just stay out of it. You don't need to be involved. Certainly not teenage boys. Like, really? Come on. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, I'm your host, Damen B, and I hope you enjoyed spilling the tea with me.